Tran-reno. This is my speech 1315 for Dr. Curry, Persuasive speech number 3. I introduce my audience. Okay, slide. All right, is diversity in the military a good thing? Slide. I want you to imagine if everybody was the same, if we all looked the same, if we were clones. Slide. Imagine serving in a military where everybody was the same, looked the same, where no one was different from the other. Slide. All right, I want to start off talking about the history of diversity in the U.S. military. African Americans, Hispanics, Asian Americans, and women and homosexuals have at various times been banned from military service and allowed only in small numbers or allowed in only under certain circumstances. We had minorities and African American slaves serve in the American Revolutionary War. African Americans have been in every major conflict since the Civil War. Japanese Americans served during World War II despite being interned in camps. They also comprise the most decorated units in U.S. military history. We talk about the introduction of women into the United States military, starting with the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, started in 1942. That started the trend of women being integrated into the military. Next, one of my references I used is the U.S. Army Center for Military History. In 2003, the then Army Chief of Staff General Eric Shinseki, who was over trade op, started a study which talked about the underrepresentation of women and minorities within the service's senior officer ranks. And the importance of that is that you start at the top, you can recruit more minorities, more women in, eventually that works down to the bottom as far as the enlisted. In 2007, the next Chief of Staff continued the program to reinvigorate the diversity initiative started by his predecessor, General Shinseki. Slide. Okay, we're going to talk about growing trends. There's a growing trend to be more diversified, not just in the military, but also in society. An article published by Kim Parker, a director of social trends research at the Pew Research Center, found is that as the country has become more racially and ethnically diverse, so is the military. Racial and ethnic minority groups made up of over 40% of the military in active duty in 2015. Our military force should be a reflection of our society. A growing trend that is reinforced in not only our military, but also, for example, federal law enforcement, state law enforcement, and local law enforcement, and first responders. We're seeing a big trend to be more, have more diversity in those employment areas. Okay, we're going to talk about, slide, we're going to talk about pros and cons of diversity in the military. Pros, a report that I cited, a 2017 report published by the Congressional Research Service by Christy N. Kmart, who's an analyst for military manpower. The studies found that the effectiveness of small groups have found that the presence of diversity associated with better creative problem solving, innovations, and improved decision making for the military, meaning that by having a diverse military, it helped to deal with obstacles, problem solving, because you had different opinions, different ways of thinking out of the box in order to solve your problems. Cons, many opponents to diversity said that the military has lowered its standard and that it might affect the quality control eventually of the military. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Diversity is very important, and diversity in our military only strengthens the argument that we are truly a melting pot. I want to summarize what I talked about. First, I talked about imagining what it would be like if everybody was the same. I don't think we'd really like that. It's important, our uniqueness. Second, I talked about the history of diversity in the U.S. military. Third, I spoke about the pros and cons of having a diverse military. In conclusion, I want to reiterate that we are not a society made up of just one type of individual. We are many different kinds of people. Our strength comes from our uniqueness. There are many types of weapons in our military, and one of the most potent weapons in our arsenal is our diversity. Slide. Here's my references. Kim Parker, 6 Facts About the U.S. Military and Changing Demographics. Pew Research Center. Christy N. Carmark, Diversity and Inclusion and Equal Opportunity in the Armed Forces, Background and Issues for Congress. And then the website I used, U.S. Army Center of Military History, the Army and Diversity. Thank you very much for your time.